Going on, everybody? It's been a long, 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 long time since I've been on here with Raj. I started it on Wednesday. I don't know if I'm going to come back full time or not, but just the itch hit me. Two people I had to talk to were Ted and now Raj. So we're gonna talk a little Niners off season discussion. Nothing too hectic really going on in 49er land right now. Free agency's kind of you know, fizzled off. And now we're pretty much looking forward to the draft. But I figured I'd attack Raj and uh, hear what he knows about any of the recent rumors and news going on in 49er land. So before we do any of that, I just want to say hello to the audience. And Raj, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? Welcome back, Aaron. I missed you, man. Good to see you. Good to see the familiar face back with a little bit of the beard. I like the beard. You know me, I'm a beard guy, so I like the fresh new look. Got the New York hat, anti-Niners. I like to see
Little
it
bit of
pop.
rebel on me. I'm going with
Yeah.
my. I gotta feel like a rebel now because I'm not rocking the Niners gear. I got out of the basement with all the silly bull crap that didn't help us win a Super Bowl, and I figured why not be a rebel and go against the grain? And who better than CM Punk, right? So
Yeah.
Raj likes wrestling anyway, so it's bridging the gap, between
It's
two
bridging the
things.
gap. Yeah, looking good.
So
You look good. I'm glad you're back. I'm happy to be here, and let's get into it, man. Now, let's
let's get
talk
into
about the
it.
Niners. Yeah, let's
Let's talk
do it.
about some Niners talk. First of all, chat, I'll try to get to you. It's been a long time, so I'm a little overwhelmed right now. As you can see, it's very minimal back here. It's all about talking and camaraderie. So, real quick, let's talk about the latest on the Brandon Ayuk news. I saw something, and I thought you were going to repeat the same thing when we were talking off air, and you said something completely different. So, what's latest in Brandon Ayuk land?
Yeah, today there was a little bit of a report from Mike Garofalo of NFL Network. This is what he actually reported on Friday, but the news kind of came out today. You know how it goes. But basically, um, Mike Garofalo of NFL Network basically said there's a little bit of a standoff between All-Pro wide receiver Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers. This is what they haven't worked on it. It doesn't appear that the two sides are close. As we know, they're kind of in the early stages. I feel like this is kind of expected, right? Lynch said that they started talking. Brandon Ayuk the other day on the Nightcap podcast, he said what he said. He says he wants what's fair for him. So he says they're talking, right? Their two sides are talking. But according to Mike Garofalo, they're not close, which to me, it doesn't like ruffle my feathers. I expected them not to be. They just basically started. Free agency just, like you said, fizzled down. They're into the draft kind of talk of the season. It's draft season. And, these contracts are going to take some time to get done. They're not like hammering out this contract now. They're just kind of on the surface. But again, Mike Garofalo said there's a little bit of a standoff. It doesn't appear that the two sides are coming close. And I'm going to read a little bit of the excerpt from what he said. So he says, "Where are we? Well, we're not close. They've made a recent run at it, from my understanding. It's not like they haven't had any discussions. They have had preliminary discussions." And then this is what Garofalo said. He says, "You saw John Lynch say that Brandon Ayuk could play on the fifth-year option, play out his deal. They're comfortable with that." And then you got Ayuk doing the little finger thing, say, "I could walk," right? And then he basically kind of followed up on that podcast, the Nightcap, saying, "Hey, if the money doesn't match, you walk
Yeah,
out
I
of it."
saw it.
Um, and then Garofalo went off and he said, basically, it's a little bit of a standoff. Now, look, this is not where the Debo Samuel thing was. And as bad as that got with Samuel basically requesting a trade, they were still able to salvage that. So he says, let's not panic here. Let's not freak out. And maybe if it gets to the point where some offseason workouts and OTAs and Brandon Ayuk does the little finger emoji saying, say, yeah, I'm going to be walking the other way instead of going to those voluntary workouts. So there is a negotiation gap early on in these preliminary talks, and Garofalo reiterated Ayuk's desire to remain with the 49ers and the star wideouts, understanding that San Francisco maintains a strong track record of working out deals. So then he further went on and he says, but he does love the 49ers from my understanding. He knows this is a team that is taking care of guys when it is their turn. There's no reason he feels like he shouldn't be next. He believes he's one of the top receivers in the league, so he expects to be paid in that realm. And then the 49ers are not quite there at this point. So they're still working out the number. And then he goes, I know that the 49ers would like to eventually get Brandon Ayuk under an extended contract. And I know that they would love to be there under the right price. So let's see if they can both get to that point where they agree on something. So basically, what it's saying, what Garofalo's saying is, yeah, they're far from an agreement. They just started their preliminary talks. Ayuk wants to be there. Lynch wants Ayuk there, but they need to figure out the number. And that's the key. What is the golden number? We heard Ocho Cinco the other day say like 30 million, 30 million. I don't think he's getting 30 million. He's a very good receiver. To me, 25 million is probably the magic number, 25 a year. And then it's the guaranteed money. And that is where they have to figure all this out. And again, the dead cap hit from Armstead in June 1st. It was a post June 1st, hit. And that money doesn't come available to 18 million June 1st. So it might take him some time. So it is interesting to see on where Ayuk will be when OTAs and all that stuff comes up. Will he be in OTAs and mandatory minicamp, or will he sit it out? Because in the past, we've seen Debo, we've seen, Nick Bosa not go to those camps, and they still figured it out. But that's kind of where we're at with Brandon Ayuk.
Man, it's man, when you don't win the Super Bowl, man, and you have this like overwhelming feeling of like you missed your chance, and then you start to hear stuff about contracts and
Yeah.
it's in the NFL. It's hard to win when you have to pay everybody, and eventually people have to leave. And it's like the Niners haven't been able to capitalize in these last two chances, right? In the last three chances, but specifically these last two. Now, what's happening? Everybody's getting paid. So that window that was like this in 2019 is like about like this right now. There ain't not much room left. This is effectively this season is the final kind of run as things currently sit.
Yeah, then they got
I'm
to
not
revamp.
saying that the Niners are going to be bad. I'm not saying the 49ers are going to suck and turn into like the 2015 Niners. But the way things are currently constructed, that's about to go bye-bye because Brock's got to get paid next year. So Brandon Ayuk, man, I said this to Ted. I was watching this guy. His name is Man Talk Sports. His name is Mandy. Okay, everybody knows who he is. He's a goofy guy. He makes a bunch of satire stuff. He cracks on 49er YouTuber. So if you're a big time YouTuber, he's going to crack on you. Anyways, he doesn't think Brandon Ayuk is worth the trouble. He says he's 5'11. He's got average speed. He's got average hands, and he doesn't see what the big deal is. And if he's going to put up a big stink, trade him and get someone in the draft or replace him. I'm kind of in that realm, to be honest with you. Like,
okay.
If Brandon Ayuk was to make this big stink about getting paid and wanting to be paid like a top guy, but yet doesn't produce like a top guy, is he? I mean, like, what are we losing? I want to ask you, what are we losing from a wide receiver standpoint that we couldn't replace somewhere else? Like, what's this? We just gotta have Brandon Ayuk thing. I don't know what it is. I think it's because of how this season ended. I have like no patience for anybody this year. Like if I see George Kittle doing stuff, I'm like, oh, of course, of course, he's all about the brand. He's all about the brand.
Okay.
So go ahead and give me an argument of why I should believe in Brandon Ayuk. I need to hear this.
Let's do it. I mean, I get it. At the end of the day, if you're still caught up on that game, I mean, it's still tough to get over. I know you're still figuring a way out of it. And Ayuk didn't have the greatest Super Bowl performance. We all know that, and Debo and whatever. But Ayuk's very important to his team. He's not only a great route runner, we know how good he is, but route running, it takes time to develop. So I think they need to improve that offensive line. We'll talk about that later. But he helps with the run blocking. He's a very, very exceptional run blocker. And you know what? The 49ers offense, they run the ball first. Everything's dictated around the run game. And we've seen Ayuk have some huge blocks. The CMC touchdown against Pittsburgh, or first week of season, that was Brandon Ayuk springing it open, boom, and then CMC does the rest, 65 yards, cloud of dust. He's very good. And also, you mentioned Brock Purdy, right? Young quarterback. He's supposed to get paid handsomely next year as long as he has another big season, and he can kind of continue where he left off from last year. Brandon Ayuk is his number one receiver. His number one receiver. He may not be Kyle's number one guy because we know he loves Debo and he's so important to the offense. But his number one guy is Brandon Ayuk, 7th in receiving yards, but he was 30th in targets overall, like 31st in targets. So he's very efficient. But for Brock Purdy to improve and get better and become the guy we want him to be, he needs that receiver. And you take away Brandon Ayuk, yeah, you can bring in another receiver, but will they be as good as Ayuk early on? It took Ayuk some time. He developed. He was one of those homegrown guys. And that's what the 49ers do. They go and draft these homegrown guys, Kittle, Warner, Debo, Bosa, et cetera, et cetera. And then when the time comes, they pay him for the most part, right? And I think that's what Ayuk is. He's their homegrown guy, and he has a solid, really great chemistry with Brock Purdy. And if you take away that guy from him, you're going to have to put in another guy, and then Brock and whoever they get will have to learn and develop that chemistry. That chemistry right now is so good. It's hard to replace
Right.
that chemistry. That's my argument.
No, in the end, I want him to be here because you're right. Chemistry is a tough thing, and I mean, unless you're getting like prime Jerry Rice,
Mm-hmm.
all I got to do is throw it to him. But even Jerry Rice had to get used to throwing or catching from a left-handed quarterback. He had to have one of the ball boys or one of the people at practice who handled. I don't know who he was, but he was a left-hander, and he would throw tons and tons of balls to Jerry Rice to get used to catching from Steve Young. So people who say like, oh, you just got to go out there and play. I realize that chemistry is a thing. I want to touch on Peter Parker's comment real quick. He says, Aaron, from the moment Casey scored to win the game, I completely checked out of anything 49ers. 100%. Barely coming around, take all the time you need. Bro, I left YouTube because I put a lot of stuff into it last year and my channel didn't really go the way I wanted to. But just everything was Niners. Like I kind of surrounded my life with it from 4 streams a week. My setup, having to get everything ready to go when I do setup and the hats and the clothes and the this. When that game ended, I was like, man, I wasted a lot of time bullshitting, doing stuff that I shouldn't have. And now what? What do I have the show for? I got really depressed. I was really down. But more than anything, I miss talking to Raj and Ted and Bashar and other people that I stream with. I really have come back just for the camaraderie part more than anything, but I have a totally different mindset. Like this year, when we talk Niners, it ain't going to be all like copacetic. I'm going to have things to say. And that's why I asked Raj, like, convince me why Brandon Ayuk needs to be here. Cause I'm kind of on the fence. Raj just kind of took me back over the 49er side of the fence of things. So I'm back on the ground, but I kind of teeter on that one. It's just like, I mean, is there someone in the draft that we can trade up for that could be better? Maybe, but you're right. Chemistry is huge. He has to learn the playbook. The NFL receivers are not usually very successful, other than guys like Puka Nacua and other players. Like it's hard to be a wide receiver in the NFL, even when you're good.
There are some good receivers that come in right away, rookie season. Like Justin Jefferson, he's a special guy, but can you get a Justin Jefferson right away? It's hard. It's a crapshoot. The draft is a crapshoot. Like I'm not saying that there's not going to be any good receivers in this draft, but the fact of like where Brandon Ayuk and where he is on this offense to replicate him again, he was the 4th option, and he still was able to get over 1,000 yards back-to-back seasons. Like, is there a rookie that's going to come in and be able to do that and replicate that for Kyle Shanahan's offense? Because a lot of like, if you're a top dog, a top wide receiver, you want to have the ball in your hand. They might get a little frustrated. You know what I mean? Brandon Ayuk's okay with his role, although if he gets paid big money, I think he's gonna have to tell Kyle Shanahan like, "Yo, give me the fucking ball, put the ball in my hands more. I don't need to be 31st in receptions. I need to be top 10 in receptions." You know what I mean? So there has to be a conflict, a conversation between Ayuk and Kyle Shanahan now moving forward. Although he got 1,300 yards, 31st in receptions. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
He was number 1 in yards per catch until the last game of the season. He was number 2, finished number 2, but he was technically number 1 all year. So he can say, "Hey, look, you throw me the ball, we're getting a first down." So I think it's hard to say like any rookie's going to come in and be okay with that role. Because I was listening to Brendan Rice a couple of weeks ago. He was on Keyshawn Johnson's new podcast and everything. Can't remember the name of the show, but he was on it, and he said, "Hey, look, I want to be a number 1 or number 2, like a top guy." He said he's not a fit for the Niners because they do have Debo, they do have Ayuk, they have Jennings. He knows he wouldn't be that top 2 receiver at least, and he wants to cultivate his own role, like most receivers, and that's a good mindset. Any top receiver that's coming into this draft, they want to be the guy. They want to be an alpha. Wide receivers are alphas. They don't want to be second fiddle, third fiddle. They want to prove that they're the guy, right? Any rookie wants to prove himself. But if you're on Kyle Shanahan's team and you're a rookie wide receiver, you think you're going to be that guy? No, he's going to make you earn that. So it's hard to replicate what Brandon Ayuk can do if you're a young rookie. I'm not saying they can't, but it's a tough role. Like to be that 3rd, 4th option, and you're used to being that top guy. It took Brandon Ayuk some time to get used because again, He was in that doghouse role, and he was like frustrated. He's like, "Give me the fucking ball." And then he got out of that area, that doghouse, and now he's fucking going for this
How
contract. So
much do you think that was Jimmy Garoppolo related, that doghouse?
I don't even think it was on Jimmy. I don't even think it was the quarterback. I just think it was a BA. You know, I think it's just BA in his head, because there was an interview I remember. I think it was on KMBR about 2 years back, and it like really told me everything I need to tell. He goes, Kyle was the first coach to tell him, yeah, you're good, but you're not great. Like you could still be better. Because he's a solid athlete. Look at the guy. His arms are like go gadget arms. He had pretty good speed, for his size and his build. His route running's great. And he was always told by his coaches, "Oh, you're the best. You're the best." Herm Edwards was his coach in college, and told him, "You're the best receiver I know." Right? Kyle Shanahan said, "Yeah, you're good. You could be better. You could be better." He never had a coach tell him you could be better, and it pissed him off. He's like, "What do you mean I could be better? I thought I'm not the best in this team." He goes, "You're not the best in this team. You could do a lot better." And I think that motivated him. That tough love strategy motivated him to be even better. And now look what he's done over the last 2 years: Pro Bowl, All Pro. 1,000-yard receiver. Because his first 2 years he didn't have 1,000 yards, and now back-to-back seasons 1,000 yards, top in yards per catch. Like we said, the blocking and everything. He really found that groove. Can he be that same player on another team? I don't know. Like maybe if he goes to another team, he'll have a high target rate. At the same time, he gets less attraction on him on the Niners, because they have Debo, because they have CMC, because they have Kittle. So I think he needs the Niners. The Niners need him. I think it's a good match made in heaven. And I
Yeah.
don't know if he can replicate that success. I'm not saying he can. I'm not saying he's done, because he's a good receiver. But if he goes to another team, he may not be as successful as he would be with the Niners.
All right. Praying Time Motion, I just want to say thank you very much. It's been a long time. He said Aaron and DC first trip to your East Coast. Yeah, I wish it was my East Coast.
It is
He's
your East
charging
Coast.
y'all rent. Yeah, I'm a curmudgeon East Coaster. I have my Yankees hat on. I don't really follow baseball much anymore, but when I did, I was a Yankees fan. I know everybody hates them. It's okay to hate them. 27 world championships. Remember when the Niners had the argument that they had 5 Super Bowls?
I know.
That's all Yankees fans have now, because just go ask Jason Aponte, okay? He's a big Yankees fan and 49ers fan. So,
Are they good anymore? No, I haven't watched baseball in a while.
I don't know, whatever. I like the hat because it's all black. It matches the shirt and makes me look mysterious. And so, Peter Parker, he says that was single-handedly that was the hardest 49ers loss I've ever watched. Just the way that it ended, it was so anticlimactic. Touchdown.
I was there, Aaron. It was disgusting leaving that place, being there.
I walked out of my brother's room, and my brother's like, "Aaron, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say to you." And my mom looked at me and she goes, "Oh, Aaron." She's like, "Oh, I feel for you." Oh, it was just so dude, that hurt, that game.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, what it did is it kind of numbed me for this season. So maybe, I don't know, maybe because I have no expectations this year, maybe they surprise me. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. My expectations after that game floored just to the bottom. Like, who cares? Like, I was just like, who cares? Everything was who cares. But appreciate you guys coming through here. Hey, if you're on Raj's channel and you want to sub over to my channel, it's 49ers First Takes Unfiltered. All you got to do is go there. You could like, share, comment, subscribe. Also, for the handful of you that are on my channel, if you haven't subscribed to Raj, it's RSF 49ers Live. Go over to his channel. Watch us both at the same time. Give us both the watch views. So just want to say thanks to everybody for coming through that I haven't seen in a long time. It's a little overwhelming, but it's fun. I had to talk to Raj. I'm like, man, we got to talk about some stuff. What's your overall feeling about the 49ers did in free agency? A lot of people were underwhelmed. I'm kind of, even though I've been kind of crapping on the Niners, I thought they did pretty well in free agency. I thought the Floyd move was solid. I thought before Kendricks decided to be a little, bitch ass and go over to Dallas. How you got to go to Dallas? Really?
He wanted to be a starter. He wasn't going to start over Fred Warner. I get it. But he took less money.
He was going to start next to him, wasn't he?
Yeah, until Greenlaw comes back. At the end of the day, he's a trader. He went to the Cowboys. That was ridiculous.
They're
And I
not even
think
going to get out of the wild card
I know
round.
it's crazy. And then I heard he wanted to play with their defensive coordinator. Like they have a his. Let him go to the Cowboys. We
Okay.
got Devondre
Okay.
Campbell. Greenlaw's rehabbing his way back.
Greenlaw
Um,
is shooting for week 1, which is
he's a monster. He's built different.
I don't know. I love Greenlaw to death. To me, I like him over Warner. I think Warner is a little bit more flash and talk than actual play.
He's still good though.
Uh, he's really good, but he folded like a wet blanket in the Super Bowl. He
You know
played
what?
really
He was
poor
trying to
down the
do
stretch.
he was trying to do everything that Greenlaw was because Greenlaw
If you're the best in the world, you got to do it.
yeah, but Greenlaw's energy was needed. Like he was playing so good, but I don't know. Their duo, that duo is so good. Fred Warner, I don't know. He's still the best in the world, but yeah, he kind of too much pressure on him, and I think he was emotionally just wound up, and I think he was mentally when he saw Greenlaw go down. I think that really
I
impacted
know.
him mentally.
It's just
That
to
was
me,
rough.
if you get paid the most, you need to play the best.
I get it.
And
I get it.
Greenlaw is to me the heart and soul of the defense.
He's good, man. They definitely missed him.
When Greenlaw left that game with injury, that defense went
Well, you could see it. You saw the
just the
videos
way they were
afterwards.
hitting early. They were hitting. They
But
were
you saw
getting
the videos
sacks.
that you saw the videos after the whole defense. Like you could tell they were just like deflated. They were like it took the wind out of it. That was the momentum killer. That was the turning point,
It was.
without a doubt. It was the
It
turning
was.
point, without a doubt.
Um,
But to answer your question, how do I like free agency? I liked it. You know, it wasn't overwhelmed. They didn't get like elite players. They didn't go and get these like splash guys, but the 49ers typically don't always go after splash guys.
no.
They get players that they feel could fit their system. And the defensive line guys specifically, I really enjoyed the guys they grabbed. And, you know, you got Chris Kasurik. He does this every single year. You get a bunch of guys, they're like, who they get? And he squeezes out every ounce of talent he can out of them, and then they go get paid. This year, they got guys on 2-year contracts. Lynch was talking about that. Usually they get 1-year contracts, but he says it's a little harder. So now they got these guys for 2 years. They're going to get every ounce of talent out of them, squeeze them out, and then they can go get paid on the market in a year or two, which they always do. Omenahu, Ebucam, you know, Kerry Hyder, freaking Arden Key, all these guys, every year they go get them, and then they become pretty good, relevant players in the league. And Malik Collins for 7th round pick, that guy is a
Yeah.
stud in the middle. And then the other guy, Jordan Elliott, was a really good run defender. I like those guys. And the key, they're durable. We've just lost Armstead, who's crying over his contract and saying, "Oh, they disrespected me." But he missed 13 games in 2 years. Fuck you, dude. I love the guy. He was
Oh,
great.
thank you. I was
But
going to
bro,
ask you
you're
about
crying
that.
about the money. You're still getting
Yo,
paid millions of dollars. They're paying you for what you're worth, Aaron. You're paying you for what you're worth in terms of being available. You have a year where you just came off a meniscus surgery. You had knee surgery. You know how
and
that rehab
plantar
is.
fasciitis.
And back-to-back years of chronic feet injuries. And those injuries, being as a physical therapist, those can spur anytime. And if it gets worse, if those plantar fasciitis injuries get worse, he could have heel spurs and guess what? Ankle surgery. The 49ers knew he was damaged goods, and guess what? The Jaguars, they have a guy named Trent Baalke. He loves the smell of knee injuries. So of course he signed him and gave him a big contract. Like that's great for Armstead. Go
Yo,
get your money. But the
yeah, him.
Niners, they dodged the bullet there. They are smart. That right there was the biggest dub. I gave them a B overall for a free agency. And the other guy you mentioned, Leonard Floyd, fantastic. Probably their best edge signing they've had on the opposite.
Averages 10 sacks over the last 4 years and
Yeah,
hasn't missed a game in 6 seasons.
yes, 108 games. He hasn't missed a game. And what do we say every year, Aaron? They need a guy to help. Both they haven't had a. That's why they had to get Chase Young. That's why they had to get Randy Gregory in the offseason or last year because they didn't have another edge rusher. They finally have a capable edge rusher. Now they still might need to go get one. They got Robert Beal coming back this year, the second year.
I would love to see what he can do.
I want to see him tear up, but I really love the Leonard Floyd. I think that was a smash signing. Bosa needed that speed guy, and Floyd has speed off the edge. It's kind of like D Ford, but a healthy version. That D Ford could have wrecked shop with the Niners if he stayed healthy. And I think Leonard Floyd is finally going to be the that guy we've been looking for on the other side. Chase Young, he's damaged goods too. He played through a neck injury, it turns out. He got neck surgery. Got $13
Whatever.
million. Like, I'm happy for him too. But the 49ers were very smart. They got guys that are healthy and durable and they replaced the guys that left that weren't durable. That's it, and we're
I can't
reliable.
even believe Armstead would have the nerve to have, oh, I don't have any ill will, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, but I felt disrespected. Bro, You're over 30. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not a great pass rusher. And first of all, you're too tall. I've never been a fan of having a 6'7" defensive tackle. I'm not. And he can't rush out on the outside. There's all these things that he can't do. And the biggest one is he can't stay on the field, right?
That's it.
My brother has plantar fasciitis, and I've had 2 knee surgeries, and my knee feels worse since I've gotten my surgery because I have a ton of inflammation in there. So, but here's the thing. I'm 44.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a professional football player and stuff. So like for me, it's like, oh, okay, he's in his 40s, he's overweight, whatever. But yeah, whatever, dude. Go to Jacksonville, be irrelevant, and then retire and whatever. Nice guy in the community, good dude. But I was
But
hoping you agreed with me on that one because I thought that was a
absolutely,
bush league
absolutely.
move.
I can't believe he like threw all that out and he said, "Oh, they only gave me 6 million," and he's saying
All
that
you're
that
worth.
wasn't, and he says it wasn't fair compensation for being on the team for 9 years and this. And look, the amount of years you have played on this team doesn't mean
It's
you
irrelevant.
deserve 17 million. Yeah, it's irrelevant. You're coming off 2 years where you missed a lot of games. You have chronic foot injuries, the knee surgery, and you know what? For him to say that the team disrespected him and they were not loyal, whatever, they were loyal to him in the first place in 2019 when they gave him that extension. They chose him over Buckner. So they showed their loyalty to him because he wasn't even drafted by Lynch and Shanahan. He was part of the old regime, but they kept him. Then they extended him. They didn't need to do that, Aaron. Like that was their loyalty. But after a couple years, after being extended, they say, "Hey, look, we got to look at this and be smart about this. You're a liability to us. You have injuries, and we love you. We love that you're here for the community. But if you really break down him being a good person in the community, a lot of that's for tax write-offs. How do you remember him flexing his contract on his TikTok? Remember he made that video of like, "Oh, look, here's what NFL player makes in the day," and he's showing that video. He's, "I'm not trying to brag." But the biggest thing I took away from that was he was crying about the, "Oh, look at the taxes, look at the taxes, look how much they take out of your contract from taxes." He still made 198K in a week. And then I thought to myself, okay, he's a charitable guy. You can tax write off all your charitable donations. So he makes back the money he lost in that contract on tax write offs for being charitable, which is, it's very noble that he does that. But at the same time, there's a reason why he's doing that. So at the end of the
Business
day,
do that. Businesses do that. And I'm not trying to make fun of anybody here. Businesses do that when they hire people who have developmental issues or special needs. And they say, oh, look, we're employing somebody and we employ everybody, even people with developmental issues. The only reason companies do that is they get a tax write.
I do so much tax write off. I
I'm
have a home
telling you,
health
people,
company.
nothing is ever what it seems when people,
I
oh, he's
have a
such
home
a
health
good guy.
company. I have a
Yeah,
home health company. You know how many things I write off, like expenses for the year, like equipment that I get, medical expenses that I use for, or any little thing, I write it off. And now I have an LLC on 49 RS of 49ers. I write stuff off. I go to games and I write it off at the end of the season because it's part of
that's
my
awesome.
business. But it's it's because the government takes your money, so I'm gonna take it right back. I'm gonna take it right back. But hey, IRS, don't come after me. That's all I gotta say. But at
Tara
the end of the
Dome. I'm
but at
so,
the end of the
man,
day, I agree with you on that.
Paradome, another person that agrees. Oh, I think everybody was kind of tired of Armstead. I seen everybody turning on him. There was only like one person who was like giving him props, somebody who does content, and they're just like, well, if you, and I'm like, just stop marking out for a freaking overhyped, underproductive, always hurt. And he, like Teradum said, single digit sacker, high pad level, often injured, no PBUs. Come on, man. I know, right? For being that tall,
For being that tall, you should have a lot
how
of
can you be 6'7"
deflected passes.
when your arm's another what 3 feet above your head and you never get? I don't think you've ever knocked down any passes.
I think I've seen one or two,
Every
but
time we
and
play games, our quarterback's getting the ball smacked back down in his face.
he's a good run defender. Like he was really good run defender. But at the end of the day, the run defense was crummy towards the end of
Oh, it
this
was
year.
horrible.
And I'm not saying it's all on him, but there's a lot of other issues in that aspect. But
And
at the end,
listen, look at all the players they could get for all the money they would have had to pay them.
yeah, I
You
agree.
essentially, what you do is you trade one guy and you get four.
Yeah, that's
Get
it.
two edge guys.
You get Jordan Elliott, you get Malik Collins, you get Leonard Floyd, and then you get Gross Matos, who's another edge setter. Look at four guys for okay, maybe two, because Kinlaw left too to the Jets. Two
Oh
guys that
God, I'm
missed a lot of
so hard.
games.
That's so bad. I'm so depressed.
You got
Out of here.
seven. $7 million.
Jazz. Preach. Thank you, Terradome. No, Terradome, you preach. He knows what I'm saying. I'm just playing. Uh, um, what was I going to say? What is your take? I know that the Niners had a visit last week with safety, formerly of the Colts, probably one of the best safeties in the NFL. Forget his name. His name Blackman. Is it
Julian Blackman, yeah.
Julian Blackman? And then we've heard nothing. And then I heard something that the safety market's kind of crashed. Do you have any update on that? Like, I thought, I mean, that would be a huge move because you got to think Gibbs is probably done. Well, some people have said maybe he's not, but so Gibson's might be done. Then you got to take on the fact that Hufunga's coming off an injury. And really, you'd be putting all of your pressure and hopes and dreams on Jair Brown. So, what's your take on the safety talk?
Yeah, so rumor a couple weeks ago, Mike Silver dropped his, article, and he says the Niners would pursue his safety, and they have, and he did mention some big names: Cam Curl, Julian Blackman, Isaiah Simmons. And you're right, they did have a visit with Blackman. Lynch talked about this, and then Shanahan talked about this last week. So there is a little bit of an update. A lot of it hinges on Talanoa Hufanga. He's coming into this year torn ACL. They want him to be the guy that he was before. They don't know if he can be 100%. They don't know if he's going to be the same Talanoa Hufanga. So they've brought in guys just in case, like Blackman. He's a starter. He's a quality player. Like he's a dog. But Kyle Shanahan basically says we don't know if we have a starting position open because they don't know if Hufunga. They don't know what they're getting back with Hufunga. So it's kind of like this: like you don't want to sign Blackman because you need to make him a starter. But if Hufunga is 100%, then it's kind of somebody's gonna get dicked out of it. You know what I mean? Somebody's gonna get like it's gonna be a bad situation, right? It's gonna be like okay, someone's getting moved out of there, and you don't want to throw Jair Brown out of there and say, "No, you're not starting just because you're year two. We got Hufunga and Blackman." You put in your chips on Jair Brown as your first draft pick last year. He was their top guy they drafted. They have a lot of high hopes for him, and he's cheaper, right? So you want to develop him and make sure he could become the guy that you thought, right? And save the money because you got Brock that needs to get paid and Ayuk and everybody. So you hope that Jair Brown can develop, but at the same time, you know Julian Blackwood could come in and be this guy, and he's a veteran, right? But at the same time, you don't know if he's going to be a starter because you don't know what you have left with Hufanga. So it's this weird
But
situation
it would be a waste of resources too.
for real. So the one thing that Lynch said that you kind of mentioned there was to Sean Gibson. They haven't closed that door, but they don't know what Gibson's decision is because last year he flirted with retirement. There is a possibility Lynch says that they would bring back Gibson because Gibson's a guy that would be okay with saying, "Yeah, Jair, you're the new guy. I'm going to mentor you. I'll be that backup just in case." Oh yeah, Hufanga, that's my guy. Like they're really close, and he knows if Hufanga comes back, it's his defense. But if he's not ready, hey, I'm going to step in that role and be your guy because he's not. To the tail end of his career. Like he's not out there to be this like star player. He's had those moments, Pro Bowler before. So he'd be the one guy that'd be the perfect for this situation, a good veteran that they could lean on if they need it. If Ufunga's not 100%, but they don't know if he wants to play yet anymore. So they're kind of waiting on Gibson. They're trying to determine if Hufunga's going to be the guy they once thought he was because of the injury. If not, Julian Blackman will get the call. If Hufunga can't be that guy.
Well, there you go. I needed to know, and now I know.
Yeah.
So I saw it last week, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm excited about that."
I
And
know.
then
I
that
was
was
hoping
it.
they get. I was like, I was ready. I was like, oh, they gotta meet with them, and I was like, okay. The next day, I was like, are we getting ready for the post? And it didn't happen. And then it came into the week, and I was like, what the fuck happened to Julian Blackman? But I'm glad Lynch and Shanahan did address that.
What is Raj's opinion on Jed York unofficially, becoming the owner or principal owner of the San Francisco 49ers? If you would ask us 10 years ago, we would have had pitchforks and a fire ready to burn him at the stake. And now, say what you want, he's put he's given the resources and he stayed out of the way, and they have a competitive team every single year. Now, I don't agree with his second place philosophy of like it's cool to be in second place because it means you had a successful season. Unless you win a Super Bowl, you don't have a successful season. I'm sorry. I will never get into that loser mindset. I understand players and front offices and teams have to tell themselves that we had a good year. They did. They had a great year. But to say it was successful, no. However, I think he deserves everything that he's gotten, and I'm glad that he is finally, hopefully, ready to take over and have this be his baby. He's done a lot of good in the last 6, 7, 8 years to kind of undo the stuff of the past. He made a mistake with Jim Harbaugh, and he made a mistake keeping Belky and all that stuff. And I was really hard on him. I thought when Lowell Cohn went after him, I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. But now looking back at it, it's like, I have nothing really bad to say about the guy. He gives John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan all the resources to build a great team every single year, and he stays the hell out of the way.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I agree with everything you just said. I'm happy for him. I think it was a good move for him. Like you said, about a decade ago, I would have said, "What the hell are we doing? You just got rid of Jim Harbaugh and you kept Trent Baalke and you hired Chip Kelly." I would have been pissed. But he's right at his wrongs. He's come a long way. He's given this team a great general manager, John Lynch, and everything else that they've put together has been fantastic. I know it's not great because they didn't win a Super Bowl, but he's given this team everything they need, and he stays out of the hair. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna not get my hands involved in this anymore, like Jerry Jones would. So I like that. I like he takes a different approach. He has learned his lesson, and it took a big guy to say, you know what? Trent Baalke was his. They were like best friends. They were attached at the hip. They were BFFs, buddies, and he fired him. He says, I got to get rid of you. That took a lot. So they got rid of Trent Baalke. They got rid of all the bad coaches, and they figured it out. And now they got a great squad. They're perennial contenders. Hopefully, he can get over the hump. I remember a couple years he had that speech in the locker room where he basically said, "We're gonna win a championship. Got to do it for my brother." Like emotional. I like what he's become, and it's good that he's segueing from his parents. It's his now. This is his team, and I want to see what he does with it. I think he could be successful. But you're right. Got to get out of the mindset of being second place. Let's win a Super Bowl. The one thing I didn't agree with him, he kind of mentioned it. And there's some people that agree with him or whatever because it is a different era. Where he said, "Oh, Uncle Eddie D, he won it in a different era. They didn't have the salary cap, and it was a little easier here and there." He won Super Bowls. Bottom line, you can't
still won.
discredit anything Eddie D did. They won a lot of Super Bowls, Ted,
I
and Jed York has yet to do it. But he did say, "Oh, it's a different era. It's harder with the salary cap. We don't know if they would have done it back then." Don't discredit Super Bowls because that was the fucking golden
and
era.
players also didn't have brands. The one issue I have with a guy like George Kittle is he's hurt a lot, and I feel like Kittle is at a point in his life where football is probably not the most important thing in his life anymore. He's got a ton of other things that pull at him.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of, we were talking about moving on from people and people like Armstead. I'm kind of getting to that point with Kittle.
I
He's
think they
coming up
want
on
to
this.
eventually, but it's hard to replace. He's still good, but I think a lot of players in this day and age, Ted, that's what they do. They got brands, they got podcast. Everybody has podcasts now. Every player on this team has podcasts because life after football it hits you different, and they got to make money. Once you're done with football, how are you going to still make money? And they got a high lifestyle. They got a lavish lifestyle. They want to be able to afford that lifestyle. They get used to that. So
I don't know.
what are you
CM
going to do?
Punk said, if you can't live on $10 million for the rest of your life, something's wrong with you.
But yo, these guys spend a lot. Maybe they're just not smart with their money because a lot of them come from no money. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, they still want to work and make more money for their families, their generational wealth for their kids and everything, and set them up. So I think a lot of these players nowadays, that's what they do. They get these brand deals, they get sponsors, this and that, and even college players. They have the NIL deal in college basketball and in college sports. They get a lot of money now. So the game has changed, but I agree. At some point, we got to address that. And there's players that are not going to be here forever.
They're coming up on like I said, they're coming up on a decision-making year next year because they're going to have to pay the quarterback. And the first person I look to that possibly they can move on from is Kittle.
Mm.
I mean, they have to. I mean, he's productive.
He had 1,000 yards last. He led
But
all. He was the best tight end in the league last year,
right, but
statistically. Well, not the best, but top. He was
and then
near the top.
he did nothing in the Super Bowl where it mattered.
I know, but you
Nothing.
know what? With Kittle, they use him as a blocker too. They put a lot of stress on this, but I get it. He does get hurt a lot. He does miss some time, and there's times where you're like, okay, he's so good. Why aren't they using him more? But it's, I think, product of design
Well,
too
then
in
they
this
need to
offense.
reevaluate what they do at offensive line and start getting some people that can freaking block because, like, geez, man, like I'm getting tired of the well, he's just blocking thing. Like
Yeah.
I don't care. Every time he goes up against Kelsey freaking just I don't know, man. I'm getting like I said, everybody's got a you're right. Everyone's got a podcast. Everybody's got something going on besides football. I'm falling out of love with a lot of players, including Debo too. Like I don't know. It's like if you don't want to be here and you want to go play somewhere else because it's all about the money to you now, because you probably realize that your best chance of winning a Super Bowl is gone, then get out of here.
I
Go.
mean, you're
We don't
not
want you
wrong
here.
because the window eventually, with this core group of players, they're not all going to be here forever, and that's why the
No.
Niners have to get young. They have to draft well. They have to get the new wave of players, and that's what they're hopefully. That's what they load up on draft picks. This is the one team in the league. Maybe there's a few, but the 49ers are one of the most homegrown, developed team. Like they hit through the draft. They develop their team through the draft. Like they really rely on this draft to really build their players, and then eventually these players are going to become older, and then you got to move away from them. But hopefully, a lot of these guys they have drafted can become the next players they need to, rely on.
Yeah, this is
Like
a big draft this year.
not
This is
only
a
this, but
big
last year.
draft.
Like you got Warner and Greenlaw. They're not going to be here forever. They drafted Dre, D Winters and Jalen
Jalen
Graham.
Graham.
Can
Yep.
they become great? They had Aziz a few years ago that you had to move off from him. Luckily, Dre Greenlaw really developed into this big time player, and it was expendable. They had three great linebackers. But again, they have great players. Diamo Lenoir is turning into a really good player, so they
Mm-hmm.
were able to, develop that guy. But eventually, all these guys need to get paid. So you got to keep hitting in the draft. You can't just pay everybody. And then Brock Purdy, they haven't. They got to pay a quarterback again. Once
Yep.
you pay that quarterback money, it changes everything. So you're right. They got to hit in this draft more than ever. And offensive linemen, let's talk about that. Jake Brendel, 32. John Feliciano, 32. He's probably in his last season. Colton McKivitz, he's not starting caliber, but he would be a good swing tackle. You need to upgrade that spot. Aaron Banks, he's in a contract year. He's probably your best young offensive lineman on your team, but he's in a contract year. Can you pay him next year? And Brock Purdy, better figure that out. And then Trent Williams, 36. He's 14 years in the league. How many more years are you going to ride Trent Williams? And he's had
He's
some
always hurt
injuries
too.
because he's older up there. Yeah, and he
Yeah.
busts his ass off. You got to get a left tackle eventually to replace Trent. So that offensive line isn't going to be staying together forever. This is probably the last year of that whole unit, and then you got to figure something out.
Yeah. It's sad. That's why a lot of fans were really just over the over the mountain or over the whatever about that being the best chance to win it, and they
It
somehow
was
choked it
there.
away.
Uh,
What's the deal with Brock Wright, this tight end? I looked at his stats, nothing too extraordinary.
yeah,
Are the Niners? It looks like the Niners put an offer for him, and it's up to the Lions to match it, and then the Niners would essentially have another tight end. It seems like they're looking at him to be tight end number two for the amount of money that they're paying him.
yeah. So yeah, they offered a 3-year contract worth up to $12 million, and it includes $6 million guarantee. The Lions have 5 days to match. This is as of yesterday. So Wednesday, the 49ers can officially have him if the Lions don't match it. The Lions, again, he's a restricted free agent, so that's why they have to match it. This is kind of like if Jawan Jennings was offered a contract match offer sheet from another team, and the Niners would have to offer or match it. The thing is they have 5 days to match. The Lions they tendered him, so they gave him the contract tender, like the Niners contract tendered Jennings. The tender was 2.985 million. And again, the 49ers 3 years 12, right? So the 49ers definitely gave a bigger bump for this guy because again, they gave him a $2.985 million. So it doesn't seem like they're gonna match it if that's the difference in money, and that's what Mayoko was saying. It doesn't sound like they're gonna match it. Um, the Lions also would not get any compensation. So if anything, the Niners swindled this guy from them. He was a restricted free agent. The Niners say, hey, we need to upgrade tight end. They lost Charlie Warner, who was a really good blocking tight end. This guy's a blocking tight end with a little bit more of yak ability. He had over 300 yards yak. So he's kind of an underrated tight end. And, they didn't re sign Ross Dwelly either. So they need a veteran tight end. They drafted 2 tight ends last year, but they were kind of not really good. So they need
They
a
were
backup.
bad.
They need a backup. And
Yep.
like you said, Kittle is not getting any younger. So this was a big move for them to get Brock Wright. I like the move. And hopefully Lions don't match it. And Wednesday we can post breaking news: the 49ers officially signed Brock
Because
Purdy.
Raj will do that.
We come. We already got the post ready, waiting. We just waiting for Schefter or Rap Sheet to tell me.
Raj already has the thumbnail waiting, man. His thumbnail
I
game
got
is
it.
quick.
We already got it.
What do we got here? What else? We got a couple things left. I saw an article about how the Niners plan to use Sorensen and Staley, and it's really weird. It's almost like Sorensen just calls the plays and Staley is the actual coordinator. Like, what is that? Like, why didn't they just give Staley the defensive coordinator position? I don't understand.
I think it's like defensive coordinators, and I think it's because Sorensen's never been a DC, so they don't want to screw this up. I think Kyle
And why
really
did they
likes,
just hire Staley?
but I think Kyle likes Staley, but the stigma he would get because nobody likes Staley, because of his head coaching, you know, uh,
Yeah, he's
experience
kind of
with the Chargers.
yeah.
But he understands defense, and his defense is actually different than what Sorensen would run. Sorensen would keep the same defense the Niners have. So I feel like they want that continuity. He'll continue to call plays. And one thing Kyle said was the team respects Sorensen. They were waiting for him to kind of take that leap, and now they felt he was ready. So, they should have probably gave him this job last year, if anything, when Steve Wilkes got the job. But maybe Kyle thought Steve Wilkes is his bigger presence. He's a former head coach, and, he thought he'd be the guy. But it sounds like Kyle's really liked Sorensen for the time he's been with the Niners. He, brought in KJ Wright, a guy that played for him with Seattle as his linebacker assistant
That's
coach.
right.
So I don't know.
They
I
said
feel
he had
like
an influence on some of the free agency stuff.
he did,
Staley.
but Staley. I think Kyle also brought in Staley for that, for helping him get some free agents. Right? They brought in Leonard Floyd, which was a defensive player for Staley when he was with the Rams a couple years back as their DC. So I don't know. It is weird because they said Staley's going to be like the game planner. He's going to plan this stuff, and
So
then
weird.
Sorensen's going to call the plays on Sunday. So it is weird. I don't know.
So Staley's like a puppet master, and Sorensen the puppet.
He's Kermit
So
the Frog. Yeah.
imagine, yeah, he's
Jim
Kermit the
Henson. So
Frog.
Brandon Staley's Jim Henson.
Yeah. So imagine Staley's hand, and then he'd be up his ass.
Yeah.
So he'd be like, yeah, all this play.
Oh my God.
You're gonna go with a zero blitz in the Super Bowl like Wilkes did? What are you, crazy?
Oh, that's good. Now that I'm thinking about it more, it's kind of a bad idea. You have two guys like trying to cook. It's gonna be too many.
I don't want to call that play.
It's gonna be too many cooks in the kitchen.
He's gonna be like, "Well, I was a head coach. Were you? No, it's did you fumbled one of the best and talented teams in the NFL? You couldn't win with them.
Brandon Staley's gonna submit the game plan to Kyle on Wednesday. Here you go, Nick. And Nick's like,
he's gonna crumple
I
it
don't
up.
like this game plan. Well, here's the game plan. Now figure out what plays to call from this game plan.
Yeah, that's crazy. When I saw that, I'm like, whatever. It's their money, right? They do what they want. Freaking millionaires. And then the last thing really is the draft. What's your overall arching feeling with the draft? A lot of people, if you ask anybody in the chat who's here what they want, everybody says offensive tackle, offensive tackle, offensive tackle. We need to replace. Do you force that if somebody at 31 isn't that guy, or do you go, you know what? There's a really good edge guy or a really good real defensive tackle who can rush, or maybe there's a guard or something like. I'm not of the mindset that you just draft a need because you need to have it. If the player at 31 isn't really better than the player that you got in the building, what is your take?
I agree. Like, you got to go best available player. If at 31, like one of the top 10 tackles isn't there, you might be able to get a good tackle in the next round that is still going to be quality. But I don't know if they're going to be able to draft a guy at 31 that could be a day one starter. That's what we need.
Yep.
We need a day
and
one.
And that they don't start rookies.
Yeah, he has to be special because the 49ers are okay with starting Colton McKivitz at tackle. It doesn't matter if me and you think that he's good, but will the rookie? This is the thing. If the rookie they draft is not better than Colton McKivitz on day one, then you fucked yourself, because why are you starting a guy that's not better than the right tackle you have? And regardless of what we think of Colton McKivitz, if you can't draft a guy that's better than him at 31 just because you need that position, you can't force it. So you need to take best available player. If there's a guard that's like a top 5 guard there, okay, maybe you take that and then you can move some players around on the line because you still need, again, they still need to replace Feliciano next year, or a guy that's a center. Maybe you get a center that's really elite because Jake Brendel's 32 and he's not really this elite center. So
Yeah,
I'm still happy if they take an O lineman, but it doesn't have to be tackle. I think fans are like so hell bent on Colton McKivitz is so bad they have to replace him. But if the right tackle is not starting caliber, don't force it. You take the best
that's
player
right.
available. Edge, if they get like Chop Robinson falls to 31, it's hard to pass on a guy like that, you know. So
Yeah, I've heard a
I,
lot about this Chop Robinson guy. If an edge guy like that is at 31, you take him.
yeah, we'll
Sorry.
see what happens. I do think
Ben Blue kind of agrees. He says John Lynch and Kyle will go with the first pick, drafting the best player on the board. It won't be an offensive lineman. I kind of have the same. Everybody has their mindset that, a lot of 49er fans are going to be peeing in their pajamas if they
they're
don't
gonna be
draft.
mad.
It's
Oh,
listen. I watched the Super Bowl too. I know Chris Jones has wrecked 2 Super Bowls for us, and
yeah,
we've done nothing about it.
I know.
Offensive line on this team is such a low priority. Their
Yeah,
priority on this team is defensive lineman, and defensive lineman. That's all they care
uh,
about.
that's it.
And yet those guys come up small in big games for some reason. All that money they pay, and it drives. One thing that drives me up the wall as a 49er fan is we talk so much. We're kind of becoming like Dallas a little bit. I'm getting tired of listening to myself and other 49er fans talk about the past, talk
Hmm.
about how good and talented we are, but we're no better than Dallas. We might get farther, but we're still losing. And so I just
True. It's
those
true.
defensive linemen, man. Every time we talk about them, every time there's a big game, nobody really does anything. So uh, I don't know. I'm excited about next season, but I'm cautiously optimistic about next season because my mental health took a serious dip after the Super Bowl.
I mean, you
I
have to
went
be
into
cautiously optimistic. I don't think that's a bad approach because they just lost the Super Bowl, which Debo said it a couple weeks ago. It's not easy to get back there, man. It took them 4 years to get. I'm not saying that it's going to take them another 4 years. They could get back next year, but it's not easy.
they
Teams
gotta
are
win one, man.
teams are upgrading because teams are targeting the Niners. Everybody knows the
Yeah,
Niners are the
the
top
Lions
dogs.
are going to be better next year.
Yeah,
Packers are going to be better next year. Don't
absolutely.
sleep on the Rams.
Yeah,
Don't
and
sleep on the Seahawks.
it's going to be a tough battle. It always is. The NFL is not
Yeah.
easy. If it was easy, best team like the Niners, they've been so good. They'd be easily winning these Super Bowls. But
If the
they.
49ers somehow make it to the Super Bowl again and the Chiefs are the opponent, I'm just going to tell the Niners to stay in Santa Clara.
Oh my God.
Just no contest. Because if they
If,
beat us
if
3
it's
times,
if it's Niners Chiefs in the Super Bowl again, I'm not gonna buy it. I'm not going to another Super Bowl. I'm gonna watch from my house, and if they win, I'll be so happy. I hope they do. I really want to see them win the Super Bowl, but I can't.
Steve
I can't
Reynolds,
pay another
you're
eight
funny.
k. I can't pay another 8K to go to the Super Bowl, man. That shit was crazy.
8K. Damn, I could use 8K. I could do my back deck and my driveway for 8K up here in New
Yeah,
York.
it's a nice amount of money.
Why don't you do your next text write off and you could just send me the bill or
I
send me
might
the
just,
the
yeah, I got it next year. I will write that shit off next year. I am writing that off next year as an
Oh
expense.
man,
Trust me.
man, man, man.
I
No
didn't get
holding
to write it
calls in
off
the
this
Super
year.
Bowl either.
It was a 2024 purchase, so I will be writing that Super Bowl off next year as a tax write-off, 100%. Absolutely.
I'm Aaron.
What you I did want to say one thing about about the draft though. They do have 10 draft picks, Aaron. If they don't trade up, I'd be so surprised. Somewhere in the draft, John Lynch loves to trade on draft day. I expect a draft trade.
Would you think it'd be a trade for a player on another team, or is it going to
No,
be
draft
a
pick.
trade up in the draft to draft somebody?
Yeah, it's going to be a trade up in the draft to draft somebody.
What
Kyle,
if they think Chop Robinson's going to go earlier? Do they trade up and try to get him?
if that's their guy, it really depends on who's their guy on their board. It's all about their draft board and where they feel those guys are going to be. And
Mhm.
Kyle and John say it every year. They say, "Look, we have our guys that we like. It may not be who you like. They have their guys, and they strategize through the draft through that board. Like, let's say there's a certain amount of guys on that board, and whoever's on it, and they're like, "Oh, we think he might be drafted around this realm. We have to have him." They'll trade up to get him. So it just depends on who's on their board. And it's always interesting to see the guys because there's so many people they draft and we're like, who's this? And then they'll tell us, oh, well, he was high on the draft board and this and that. So it really depends. I could see them trading up into the first round. If there's an offensive lineman that they really prioritize, I think they would. But again, it's hard to get a read on them because I feel like they're content with the team they have. Like the way I hear John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan talk this week, it's like they're just happy with their team and they're okay with what they have, and they feel like they can coach this team to another Super Bowl run. Fans may not be content with the team, but they're okay. And every year they seem to get to at least the NFC Championship.
I'm
So
never content people being content if something didn't equate into a Super Bowl victory. Like, how can you be okay with the current team if that current team wasn't good enough? Like, that's mediocrity. That's
it
the
is, but
definition of mediocrity.
it's so tough because we get to an NFC Championship pretty much every year now. It's like it's great. It's like a great ride. It's like it's great, but then it's heartbreaking at the end because you don't finish the job, right? It's like you get so close to the finish line and then you trip and fall and someone beats you, right? That's what it
Yeah, it's
is
like you're right
every
at the
single.
finish line of a race and you biff.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what it is. But at the same time, like the thrill of getting to that point is a great. Like, would you rather? So I got to ask you because you asked me earlier, like, how do you stay positive in this and that with with losing these games? Would you rather just tank, like have a 2-win season and just fucking
No,
suck and not get to that end
no,
point? And yeah, it is heartbreaking
you're right.
to get to that point, Aaron. Like it's so
I
heartbreaking,
don't want us to suck every
but
year.
you don't want
No.
to suck because then your mental health would be even worse. So that's where my head is. Like we get to this point, and that's how I was able to accept the Super Bowl loss because it would have been worse if they were a 2-win team. Like we wouldn't have even get the thrill of that. Like yes, it sucked. Yes, it sucked, but we're still alive. You got other things that matter in life. You still live your life. But my life is better that the fact that I saw them get at least that close than if they would have had a 2-win. I would have been so pissed off all season. My life. You know how mad you'd be if this team was a 2-win team. You're like the Panthers, and you're
The
cussing
only
the
thing that was
storm.
okay about those seasons, I know this is really sacrilegious,
Hmm.
is there was no stress.
Yeah, that's
No
true. It
stress.
is. It's
You
easy.
watch games and you literally are like, guess what? We have the chance to go get Nick Bosa in the draft, or we have a chance to go get this guy in the draft. That was the only thing. Me and my nephew used to say, though, only the 49ers would figure out a way to draft a defensive player and make him a fullback like they did, what's his name? The redheaded dude back in the day when he was the
Oh,
fullback during the Harbaugh years.
Miller. Yeah.
Yeah, my
Uh,
brother, my nephew was always like,
Bruce Miller. Bruce
if
Miller.
you want a fullback, draft a fullback. Why are
Yeah.
you drafting a defensive lineman and turning it?
I know. It
That was
was funny.
the old 49ers. But when we were here, me and my nephew were talking about Quinnen Williams. He's like, watch the Niners draft Quinnen Williams.
A lot
And
of
when they
people thought.
drafted Bosa, they drafted Bosa, my nephew goes, finally, they get the best player, and they just he said, stop overthinking. That was the exciting part about those sucky teams is every year you're going to be talked about by the guys that do all the draft talk every year. It's Niners, Niners, Niners.
Hmm.
But then that kind of wears off. So yeah, I mean, no stress, and then you have the ultimate stress of losing a Super Bowl.
Yeah. So
Real quick, and then we'll get out of here. What's your take on now the Niners having no Rand Carthon and no Adam Peters? This is going to be the first draft without both of them, and there's a lot of uncertainty with that. That's scary.
yeah, it is. It is a big like unknown. We don't, everybody sits here and we always say, Rand Carthon and Adam Peters or draft gurus. Look at what they've done, help this team get all the late round picks. That's what we've heard, but we don't know what to expect without those guys. So it is
Yep,
a mystery. If the 49ers draft good, then it's like, okay, this front office is not missing a beat. But if they draft good bad, then you have to wonder how much was Adam Peters a big part of those drafts in the past. So we'll see.
that's why you got to win in those windows. That's the whole
Yeah.
point of those windows.
I think Adam
So
Peters has been very aggressive with Washington. He's trying to make that a good team. So kudos to him. But we will see. It is interesting. I don't know what the impact's going to be because everybody, if you ask any Niners contact creator, oh, Adam Peters is the guy. He's the guy. That's why they drafted. It's only Adam Peters. But we really haven't seen them draft without him. So we don't know. We have to wait and see how these drafts pan out without him. Because maybe they draft good and we're like, oh, okay, but it doesn't matter. But if they can't draft good and also have to look at how Washington does. If Washington becomes a stellar team, then then you can equate it to say, yeah, you know what? Adam Peters is a dog. He's got that dog in him. But we don't know yet. We got to see how Washington goes, and we have to see how the Niners go. So it's a wait and see right now. It's a mystery.
yeah,
Yeah,
Raj, it was fun. I had
it was
fun.
good.
It's
It's a
been a
good
long
stream.
time.
Yeah,
I feel like we didn't miss a beat.
I know.
You're always
Yeah.
easy to talk to on and off
It's the
stream.
beard. You got to keep Aaron. The beard is working for you, my guy.
Thanks.
The ladies must love you now with the beard.
The lady.
Okay, the lady. There,
loves-
see, that's how you got her. You got
She
that
said
beard.
She said either way, but I think she likes it.
No, she likes the beard. It's because you got that dog in you now, Aaron.
Well, somebody says I look massive. They're like, you look like this big burly man. I'm like, yeah, I do. From like the shoulders down, I am kind of a big guy, but I mean, I'm not 6'8" or 6'10" or something. But yeah, I had fun. I don't know how much more I'm going to do with this until maybe around the draft.
Yeah, it's cool.
I have a couple people I might want to shoot out to do a couple kind of like back in the saddles. I know you guys are big fans of the UK 49er faithful. Real good guy, Paul Hope. Those guys are great. And then I might just I just taking it easy right now. It's the off season. You know what I mean?
Go back in the rafters. You like the sting of You like
Yeah.
Sting. You march at your own beat. You come out of the rafters. You got the bat, and you just
And
come
I'm
out
not
for
afraid to
justice.
ruffle feathers and get
Yeah.
people to not like me. I don't care.
I love it.
This is the one thing about life you got to learn to do, and that's not care what other people think. If they don't like you because you say mean things about them and talking in a really weird voice, then that's their problem. So, everybody, thanks for coming through. All my actual followers that follow me, thanks for coming back. For anybody that Raj knows that was on the chat tonight, appreciate you coming through too. I would assume me and Raj might get this thing back going as we get closer to the season. I can't see why not, Raj.
Yeah, I don't see. We'll run it back as the season comes back. Let me know. You got my number. Text me.
Yeah,
and we'll figure it out, man. I'm always down.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Take care. Everybody have a great rest of your Saturday. Enjoy your weekend.
Happy Easter.